The fluorescent lights of Terminal C burned into my skull as I watched my sister slip my passport into her designer handbag. My mother didn't even look back. My father's hand was on my brother's shoulder, guiding him forward, protecting him, choosing him. The boarding gate was closing. My name was being called for the final time, and I was standing there, frozen, watching my entire family board a plane to my grandmother's funeral without me. That's when the man in the expensive suit collapsed at my feet. And that's when the cleaner leaning against the wall near the restrooms whispered 5 words that changed everything. Act like you're his wife. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Nora Whitfield, and 24 hours before I was abandoned in an airport terminal, I was the daughter my family actually acknowledged. I was the one they called when they needed something fixed, handled, managed. I was 32 years old, single, successful in my own right as a corporate litigation attorney, and the only member of the Whitfield family who'd actually earned their money instead of inheriting it. That should have been my first warning. The second warning was when my sister Vanessa called me at 11 p.m. the night before, her voice cracking with what I thought was grief. Nora, Grandma Catherine passed away. We're flying out tomorrow morning. Dad already booked your ticket. Can you meet us at the airport? 6 a.m. Terminal C. I didn't sleep. Grandma Catherine raised me when my parents were too busy building their real estate empire. She taught me how to read contracts, how to negotiate, how to never show weakness. She was the only person in my family who loved me without conditions. I should have known they wouldn't let me say goodbye. I arrived at the airport at 5:30 a.m. with my carry-on and my grief still fresh enough to make my hands shake. My family was already there, clustered near the check-in counter like they owned the place. Which, knowing my father's connections, they probably thought they did. Nora! Vanessa rushed over, her Chanel perfume arriving 3 seconds before she did. Her hug was brief, performative. Thank God you're here. We were worried you wouldn't make it. Of course I made it. I pulled back, searching her face. Where's Mom and Dad? Getting coffee. She gestured vaguely toward the terminal Starbucks. Julian's with them. Julian, my younger brother, 28, unemployed and somehow still the golden child. Did you bring the documents? Vanessa asked suddenly. I blinked. What documents? The estate documents. From Grandma's lawyer. Mom said you were handling them. My blood went cold. Vanessa, Grandma died yesterday. There haven't been any estate documents yet. What are you talking about? Something flickered across her face. Too fast for me to read. Oh, right. I must have misunderstood. Never mind. But I didn't forget. That was mistake number 1. We checked in together. Or rather, they checked in while I stood there, my boarding pass in hand, watching my father charm the gate agent with his practiced smile. The same smile he used to close real estate deals worth millions. The same smile that never quite reached his eyes when he looked at me. Charles Whitfield, he said smoothly, sliding his black American Express across the counter. Party of 4. We're in first class. Party of 4? I interrupted. Dad, there are 5 of us. He didn't even glance at me. Vanessa, Julian, your mother, and myself. 4. The gate agent's fingers paused over her keyboard. Sir, I show 5 passengers on this reservation. That's incorrect. My father's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. Please adjust it. Dad. I stepped forward, my boarding pass clutched in my hand. My ticket. You said you booked my ticket. Did I? He finally looked at me and his eyes were stranger's eyes. I don't recall that, Nora. My mother appeared at his elbow, holding 2 coffee cups. She handed one to Julian without acknowledging me. Is there a problem? Nora seems to think she's on our flight, Vanessa said quietly. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Seems to think? You called me last night. You told me to meet you here. I called to let you know about Grandma. Vanessa's voice was so soft, so reasonable. I never said you were flying with us, Nora. Why would you fly with us? You weren't close to Grandma. The world tilted. I wasn't. Vanessa. She raised me. She raised all of us. Julian cut in, speaking for the first time. He was scrolling through his phone, bored. Don't make this weird, Nora. Miss, if you're not on this flight, I need you to step aside. The gate agent's voice was apologetic but firm. I have other passengers waiting. I looked at my boarding pass. My name was on it. The flight number was correct. The date, the time, everything was correct. This is my boarding pass, I said numbly. My father plucked it from my hand so fast I didn't have time to react. He glanced at it, then smiled that terrible smile at the gate agent. This is a duplicate from a previous reservation. A booking error. I'll sort it out with our travel agent. No. I reached for it. That's mine. That's my... Nora. My mother's voice could have frozen fire. You're making a scene. I'm making a... You called me here. You told me Grandma died. You made me think I was going to her funeral. And you will, Vanessa said soothingly. Just book your own flight, Nora. This one is full. Then why did you tell me to come to the airport? Nobody answered. They just looked at me, looked through me like I was a stranger causing a disturbance. The gate agent cleared her throat. Sir, I need to finish check-in for your party. Of course. My father turned back to her, dismissing me entirely. As I said, party of 4. I stood there paralyzed as they checked their bags, as they received their boarding passes, as they walked towards security, together, a complete family unit that didn't include me. Vanessa paused at the security line entrance. For 1 second, I thought she might turn back, might explain, might apologize. Instead, she opened her handbag, the cream-colored Birkin that cost more than most people's cars. And I saw it. My passport. The one I'd left sitting on the check-in counter when I'd reached for my boarding pass. Our eyes met. She smiled. And then she walked through security, carrying my passport with her. And I understood. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. I don't know how long I stood there, long enough for the terminal to fill with morning travelers, long enough for my flight, their flight, to begin boarding. Long enough to hear my name called over the PA system. Final boarding call for passenger Nora Whitfield. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process what had just happened. That's when I heard the commotion near gate C7. A man stumbled past me, his expensive suit wrinkled, his dark hair disheveled. He was maybe 40, maybe younger. Hard to tell when someone looked that exhausted. His eyes were wild, scanning the terminal like he was being hunted. 3 men in dark suits were moving through the crowd toward him. Not running, not drawing attention, just moving with the kind of purpose that made my lawyer instinct scream danger. The man's eyes locked on mine. For 1 bizarre second we just stared at each other. Then his knees buckled, and he collapsed. Right at my feet. I dropped to the ground instinctively, my hands reaching for him, checking for a pulse. Sir? Sir, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open. They were gray, sharp. Even half-conscious, they were calculating something. Play along, he whispered. What? And then I heard another voice. The cleaner, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the kind of face that had seen too much to be surprised by anything, was suddenly crouched beside me. Act like you're his wife, she said quietly, urgently. Security's approaching. I looked up. The 3 men in dark suits were closer now, maybe 20 feet away. Behind them, 2 actual airport security officers were heading our direction. They'll take him, the cleaner cut in. Her eyes were hard. And whatever you think happened with your family, that'll be the least of your problems. He's your husband. You're traveling together. He has a medical condition. Understand? Who is he? Someone who can help you get on that plane. My heart stopped. How did you... Ma'am? One of the security officers was beside us now. What happened here? The man's hand found mine. His grip was surprisingly strong. Tell them, he whispered. I looked at the cleaner. She nodded once. And I made a choice. It's my husband, I said. And the lie came out smoother than I expected. He has a heart condition. The stress of traveling, He forgot to take his medication this morning. The officer's expression softened. Does he need medical attention? No. The man on the ground, my supposed husband, struggled to sit up. No, I'm fine, just got dizzy. Low blood sugar, I'm okay. The three men in dark suits had stopped about 15 feet away. They weren't moving closer, but they weren't leaving either. Just watching. Sir, are you sure? The second security officer was already on his radio. We can call paramedics. Really, I'm fine. The man got to his feet, swaying slightly. His arm went around my shoulders, pulling me close. To anyone watching, we looked like a concerned wife supporting her unwell husband. My wife worries too much. His cologne was expensive, cedar and something darker. His suit was custom-tailored. His watch was a Patek Philippe. Whoever he wasn't some random traveler. What flight are you on? The first officer asked, still concerned. The man didn't hesitate. Flight 237 to Boston. That's my family's flight. I blurted out before I could think. Everyone looked at me. The man's gray eyes met mine, and I saw it. The calculation, the quick assessment, the decision. That's right, he said smoothly. We're traveling with her parents. Wedding anniversary trip. They're already through security. We need to hurry, I added, surprising myself. We're going to miss boarding. The cleaner stood up from where she'd been kneeling beside us. Young love, she said with a knowing smile directed at the officers. Always dramatic. He'll be fine. Just needs some orange juice and his medication. The officers exchanged glances. One of them shrugged. All right, but if you feel worse, sir, please find a medical station. Absolutely. Thank you, officers. We started walking. His arm was still around me. The three men in dark suits watched us pass, their faces expressionless. We made it 10 feet before the man stumbled again. This time, for real. Bathroom, he gasped. Now. I half dragged, half supported him to the nearest restroom. The men's room was empty. It was early enough that the morning rush hadn't started yet. I got him to a sink, and he braced himself against it, breathing hard. Who the hell are you? I demanded. He laughed. Actually laughed. I could ask you the same thing, Mrs. Don't call me that. Who are those men? Business associates. Business associates don't chase people through airports. Mine do. He turned on the faucet, splashed cold water on his face. When he looked up, his eyes were clearer, sharper. Thank you for playing along. I'll make it worth your while. I don't want your money. Everyone wants money. I want to know why a cleaner told me you could help me get on a flight. That got his attention. He studied me carefully. Flight 237 to Boston. You said that's your family's flight. They left without me. Took my passport. Stranded me here. His eyebrows rose. Why would they do that? That's what I'd like to know. And the cleaner said I could help you? She implied it. He was quiet for a long moment thinking. Then, what's your name? Nora Whitfield. Something changed in his face. Whitfield. As in Charles Whitfield? The real estate developer? My stomach dropped. How do you know my father? I don't, but I know the name. He straightened, wincing. I'm Marcus Chen, and I think your family just made a very big mistake. What are you talking about? Those men who were following me? They work for Vincent Caruso. Ring any bells? It did. Vincent Caruso was a name that appeared in the business section of newspapers. A developer, like my father. A competitor. A man with connections to... Oh, God, I whispered. Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yeah, your father's been making moves to acquire property that Caruso wants. Very aggressive moves. Possibly illegal moves. And I'm the forensic accountant who's been documenting it all. You're going to testify. I was supposed to. Grand jury hearing tomorrow in Boston. Funny thing, your family's flying to Boston today. Your grandmother's funeral is in Boston, isn't it? I couldn't breathe. My grandmother, Catherine Whitfield, I know. She owned the property portfolio that's at the center of this whole mess. Half the buildings in downtown Boston, worth about $300 million. The bathroom spun. 300? You didn't know? It wasn't a question. She never. Grandma lived modestly. She was smart, and she put everything in a trust. A trust that, according to my research, names one primary beneficiary. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling through files. Funny thing about probate lawyers, they talk too much after a few drinks. Your grandmother's attorney was very chatty at a conference last month. Said the bulk of the estate goes to one granddaughter, the one who actually earned her own law degree, the one who didn't need family money. My knees went weak. That's not possible. It's very possible. In fact, I have the documentation right here. He turned his phone toward me. There it was. A trust document. Catherine Whitfield's signature at the bottom. And my name listed as primary beneficiary. When does this become official? I asked hoarsely. Upon reading of the will, which happens tomorrow afternoon in Boston, 24 hours after the funeral. They left me here. The realization hit like a sledgehammer. They left me here so I'd miss it, so I wouldn't be there for the will reading, probably hoping you'd just forfeit your claim. After 30 days of not responding to legal notifications, the estate would go to secondary beneficiaries. Let me guess. Your siblings? And my parents. So they strand you here, you miss the funeral and the will reading. The lawyer sends notifications to your address, which they probably control, and you never receive them. 30 days later, you lose everything. They split $300 million between them. Marcus shook his head. It's actually brilliant. Cruel, but brilliant. The rage that flooded through me was pure and cold and absolutely clarifying. You need to testify in Boston, I said slowly. I do. Those men out there, they're trying to stop you. They are. What if we helped each other? His eyes narrowed. I'm listening. You need to get to Boston safely. I need to get to Boston, period. No passport, no ticket, no money except what's in my wallet. I met his gaze. But I'm a corporate litigation attorney. I know every trick in the book about moving money, hiding assets, and creating legal nightmares for people. I guarantee I know things about my father's dealings that could make your testimony even more valuable. You'd testify against your own family. They left me in an airport like trash. They stole $300 million from me. They're not my family anymore. I held out my hand. Do we have a deal? Marcus stared at my hand for a long moment. Then he smiled. A real smile this time. Sharp and dangerous. Mrs. Chen, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Getting me on the flight without a passport was easier than I expected. Turned out Marcus Chen wasn't just any forensic accountant. He was a forensic accountant with federal connections. One phone call to someone he called my handler, and suddenly I had an emergency travel document, a new boarding pass, and 2 federal marshals escorting us through the security. The 3 men in dark suits watched from a distance but didn't approach. They couldn't. Not with federal protection. Your handler? I asked as we cleared security. I'm not just testifying tomorrow. I'm entering witness protection afterward. Caruso's reach is long. And you're using me as cover. You're using me as a travel agent. I'd say we're even. We boarded the flight in the final group. First class, of course. Marcus's federal contacts had upgraded both of us. I saw my family as we walked past. My father in seat 2A, my mother beside him, Vanessa and Julian across the aisle. They didn't see us, too busy with their champagne and their celebrating and their absolute confidence that they'd won. I didn't say anything, just kept walking to our seats in row 4. They're right there, Marcus whispered. You could confront them now. No. I settled into my seat, accepting the mimosa the flight attendant offered. Let them think they won. Let them celebrate. Let them believe I'm stuck in Newark, helpless and alone. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I show up at the will reading with documentation of their fraud, their conspiracy to deny my inheritance, and, if you'll allow it, a forensic accountant who can testify to their money laundering and property acquisition schemes. Marcus laughed quietly. You're vindictive. I like that. I'm not vindictive, I'm thorough. The plane door closed. The engines started. My mother said something to my father and they both laughed, the sound carrying back to where I sat. They had no idea I was 20 feet behind them. They had no idea what was coming. The flight to Boston was 3 hours. I spent them drafting legal documents on Marcus's laptop. He spent them feeding me information about my father's deals, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the suspicious property transfers. This is enough to bury him, I said, scrolling through files. Even without your testimony, this is felony fraud. RICO charges, he could go to prison. Will you do it? Marcus asked. Actual prison for your father? I thought about Grandma Catherine, about the woman who taught me to read contracts at age 8, who paid for my law school when my parents said it was a waste. Who told me the last time I saw her, Nora, don't let them make you soft. The Whitfields are sharks. You have to be the shark that eats them. Yes, I said. I'll do it. We landed at Logan at 11 a.m. My family deplaned before us, first-class privilege. I watched them gather their bags, watched Vanessa check her phone, watched my father shake Julian's hand like they'd accomplished something important. They walked past our row, without a glance. Marcus and I waited until they were gone, then deplaned with the federal marshals still flanking us. We had a different destination than my family. They were heading to their hotel. We were heading to a federal building where Marcus would be debriefed before tomorrow's testimony. What will you do tonight? He asked as we waited for our car. Visit Grandma's attorney. Make sure he knows I'm in town. File a formal challenge to any claim that I abandoned my inheritance. I looked at him. And tomorrow, I'll be at that will reading with bells on. And after? After you get your $300 million and your father goes to prison? I smiled. It felt like Grandma's smile, sharp and unforgiving. After that, Mr. Chen, I'm going to buy every single property my father tried to steal from Caruso and donate them to charity. I'm going to fund legal aid organizations that help people fight corporate fraud. And I'm going to make absolutely certain that the Whitfield name is associated with disgrace and bankruptcy for the next 50 years. That's cold. That's justice. He nodded slowly. You know, I could use a good attorney in my new life. Witness protection is complicated. Someone who understands financial crimes, corporate law, asset protection. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Chen? I'm offering you a partnership. You help me navigate my new identity. I help you manage your new wealth. 50-50 split on any consulting fees. Completely above board. Completely legal. And the fake marriage thing? Saved both our lives. I'd say that's worth keeping the connection. He held out his hand again. What do you say, partner? I shook his hand. I say my family made a big mistake when they left me in that airport. The biggest. Marcus agreed. 24 hours later, the conference room at Sullivan Cross Law Offices was small, formal, and filled with my family when I walked in at 2 p.m. sharp. My father's head jerked up. My mother went white. Vanessa actually gasped. Julian just stared. Nora, my father said slowly. How did you get here? Interesting story. I took the empty seat at the conference table, the one marked with my name. Turns out when you steal someone's passport and strand them in an airport, you should make sure they don't have friends in high places. This is highly irregular. Their lawyer, not Grandma's lawyer, their lawyer, started to say. Actually, this is completely regular. Grandma's attorney, Robert Sullivan, entered behind me. He was 70, silver-haired, and had known my grandmother for 40 years. Miss Whitfield is the primary beneficiary of Mrs. Catherine Whitfield's estate. Her presence is not only expected, but required. I watched my father's expression shift from shock to calculation to fury in under 3 seconds. There must be some mistake, Vanessa tried. Nora wasn't close to Grandma. Nora was Catherine's favorite grandchild and the only one who visited her more than twice a year, Robert said coldly. Which is why Catherine left her the bulk of the estate. He opened the will, began to read. I watched my family's faces as the numbers were announced. The property portfolio, to Nora. The investment accounts, to Nora. The stock holdings, to Nora. $340 million to be exact. To Vanessa and Julian, $100,000 each. For their education, which they wasted, the will specified. To my parents, nothing. This is a fraud, my father said flatly. My mother would never. Your mother was very specific about her wishes, Mr. Whitfield. Robert looked at him with open disdain. She was also very specific about why. She said, and I quote, "My son became a criminal. His children became leeches. Only Nora remained honest." You can't prove. Actually, I can. I slid a folder across the table. This is documentation of every fraudulent property transfer, every shell company, every offshore account you've hidden money in for the past 15 years. It's also evidence of your conspiracy to deny me access to my inheritance by stranding me in Newark. My mother found her voice. Nora, you can't do this to your family. You stopped being my family when Vanessa stole my passport. I stood up. You have two options. Option 1. Face federal charges for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Option 2. Sign over any claim you might have to Grandma's estate, issue a public apology, and quietly disappear from my life forever. You're bluffing, Julian said, but his voice shook. I'm really not. I checked my watch. I have a forensic accountant testifying to a grand jury in about 3 hours. He has even more documentation than I do. Your choice? Prison or exile? The room was silent. My father stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen the daughter who did what she was told, who managed things quietly, who never fought back. That Nora died in Newark Terminal C. Will sign, he said finally. His voice was empty. Excellent choice. I looked at Robert. Can we proceed with the will reading? Of course, Miss Whitfield. I sat back down as my family signed away their claims, watched them initial every page, watched them give up $300 million to save themselves from prison. When it was done, I walked out without looking back. Marcus was waiting in the lobby. How'd it go? They signed everything. It's over. And how do you feel? I thought about it. Thought about the girl who'd stood in that terminal, watching her family abandon her. Thought about the woman who'd walked into this conference room an hour ago. Rich, I said finally. I feel rich. Marcus laughed. Good. Because we have work to do. Caruso's organization is bigger than your father's operation, and they're going to be very unhappy when they realize they can't intimidate me anymore. Let them try. I looked at him. I've got 300 million reasons to fight back, and absolutely nothing left to lose. You know what that makes you? What? Dangerous. He grinned. I like dangerous. We walked out of the building together into the cold Boston afternoon. Behind us, my family was probably still sitting in that conference room, trying to understand how they'd lost everything. I didn't care. Grandma Catherine had been right all along. The Whitfields were sharks. She just forgot to mention that I was the biggest shark of all. And I'd just begun to feed.